as we get older, women may find that they've just lost all ability to care. They basically get to a stage where they, no, I just don't care anymore, or they're just so overwhelmed and they can't care anymore. And basically, what's happening is because life is just so busy, you know, it's not unusual for people going into 50 and over to be looking after young children, to be looking after parents as well as their own household, maybe working full time, but then finding that emotionally and mentally it's just too much and they really can't understand, what's happened. But if there's been stuff that's happened throughout your life that you haven't dealt with mentally and emotionally, then somewhere along the line, the body just goes, I can't do this anymore. I just can't keep up. I haven't got the resilience. This is just all too much. And it can show up as you feeling really tired all the time, not having the ability to jumpstart like you used to. And somewhere along the line, it has to be dealt with. And if you don't deal with it, then that's when you crash and burn. So but often what we do is we beat ourselves up. And you sort of think, oh, well, that worked in the past, but did it really? Beating yourself up about all this stuff, it doesn't work. It just makes you feel worse. So menopause may be the body, may be the time, the catalyst really, for you to really take a good look at what's going on, because there's so much going on with menopause and everything else that perhaps the body just goes, can't do this, can't do it anymore, mentally and emotionally, I'm just had enough. So that can often be the time when the body says, you have to do something. This isn't working. It's never worked really, but now's the time, because maybe your resilience, like you feel like you just can't bounce back anymore, or everything's just getting too much. So the thing is that whatever needs addressing emotionally and mentally, if that's dealt with at this stage, then everything else may move easier, may feel easier. It may feel easier to get on with day-to-day life. But if it continues to float around in your head and not be dealt with, that can be really catastrophic for you. It really can be a time where, unless you figure out that you've got a choice in the way that you approach this emotionally and mentally, then that can really affect your health. And then nobody gets to see the good, the real you, the competent, happy, well-adjusted you that is you. Around that age, around the menopausal time, can be a time that we crash and burn, because we haven't dealt with stuff that's been on our shoulders for a long time. If there's been childhood events or early time, previous to being 50 and over, emotional times that we haven't dealt with, it catches up. And unless we find a way to look at it, explore it, understand what's underneath, realize that we can choose to be in one direction or move into another, then the body just will say, no, can't do this anymore. You have to find a way of dealing with this. So often, as we move into our older age, unless we find a way to work with this, work with our body, work with our emotions, work with our, resilience and fragility and all that stuff, it can be a very difficult time for us. And it doesn't have to be. There's other ways that we can work through this. So finding somebody that will listen, that won't tell you what to do, that will give you the chance to figure out yourself that you have a choice, maybe not in the physical realm, but, and I mean that like maybe you haven't physically got the choice of looking after an elderly parent, or looking after, having your children in the house, all that sort of stuff. That's everyday stuff that you just have to work around. But emotionally and mentally, if you're carrying the burden of all this other stuff, that's not helping either. So if you could find a way to discover choice in that event, that would help in coping with everything else. If you find yourself saying, I don't know how this happened, I've completely, lost my resilience, I feel so fragile. I used to be so brave. I used to be able to cope with everything. Everything used to be a breeze for me. I used to be so brave. I used to handle everything. And now I find that every little thing is making me scared. I have this anxiety around things, day-to-day things. And if you find yourself saying, I don't know how this happened, I feel so fragile. I feel like I can't cope with day-to-day stuff. Often as we move on through, over 50, but it is happening to a lot of women younger than 52, where they find themselves responsible not only for their own family and their household, but perhaps there's an older parent that's needing support as well. And depending on whether you have siblings or not that are willing to assist and help, sometimes you can end up being the sole carer, apart from your own family, of course. And that in itself can be a really, really busy time. And perhaps you don't get to take care of yourself in a way that is healthy and nurturing for you. Often we forget to look after ourselves. And, that old adage, where if you don't put the oxygen mask on yourself first, you're going to be no good to anybody else. And it's so true. What is the point of making yourself ill because you're not dealing with your emotional and mental health and your physical health? What is the point? You want to be able to do this and come out the other side with your life, with your family intact, with everything in a way, in the most healthiest of ways. Often if we don't deal with it, then resentment tends to move in and we start to resent the person that we're looking after.